So we're looking at a big decision we have to take in our careers, especially when we need a change. What's the best thing to do? Stay in your lane or take a big step and maybe retrain for something completely new? Now I'm doing this myself, so I've got skin in the game, and I thought I'd share how I got some perspective on this. If this is something you're considering, you might find it useful. I'm going to list the pluses and minuses of both options, and at the end I'm going to explain how I'm doing it, but spoiler alert, it's neither of these two. So let's start with the retrain option. What are the advantages? First big one, of course, is that your interest level for whatever it is that earns you money climbs dramatically. Everything feels new. It's a challenge, and I really enjoyed the feeling that I couldn't just tick over and still get my job done. I wasn't wasting my days anymore. Now you may have noticed I'm no longer that young, but this feeling never goes away. It's the joy of the unknown, and it's totally addictive at any age. I used the opportunity to realign my work with what suited my life. I like driving, but I don't want to do 100 miles a day every day for work, so that needed fixing at the time when I was making the change. Similarly, you may be at a time of life where, even though it shouldn't happen, you can feel that you're on borrowed time where you're currently working. Moving into a field where age is not an issue, and my last video lists some great ones, it's a great reason. We're all under threat currently if our jobs are in the same field where AI is currently taking massive strides, and it threatens to remove whole professions and dramatically reduce the need for others. You only have to listen to lawyers and accountants on this to know that big things are arriving soon in their fields. I wasn't too concerned about this, but it certainly was a consideration when I was looking at what I would do next. So, moving into growth sectors that aren't at threat yet gives you a degree of security for the future. On the downside of making a change, there's one very obvious one to start. Obviously, it's finance. But let's check that. There's a short-term hit and it can be significant, but in the longer term it may look a lot different if you're moving into something that really lights your fire and isn't in the AI firing line, of course. But that short-term problem is a big one. You may need to pay for retraining, and the lost income while you do it and get the next thing off the ground can make it untenable, especially if you can't guarantee success. I did need to spend some money to move. Another one is just uncertainty. Comparing something that we're doing with something that we haven't done before can be really disorientating and uncomfortable. Yes, you can do loads of research, but you can never truly experience something without actually making that jump. And it can go wrong, of course. Finally, if we're fairly unhappy with what we're doing currently, the grass on the other side of the fence always looks a lot greener. But with that unfamiliarity bonus removed, will you be really in a better place? I think the answer can be a problem. In my case, yes, the unknown was difficult, but I worked out what to do, and we'll come back to that. So on the other side, what if you stay in your lane? Of course, number one, you don't have to spend the money to retrain at all. You're starting out with a big advantage, and at least in the short term, you can earn money from your knowledge currently without doing anything. You may have opportunities to further leverage your knowledge as well if you get promoted. You can't just buy experience, and it's hugely valuable. Now, I'm a big fan of this book, The Unfair Advantage. Now, you can argue that your current work skill is in itself your unfair advantage, so moving away from it removes the possibility of taking advantage from it, and you need to think about that. Finally, you may have a reputation in your field. People come to you because they know you're good at your job. In your whole industry, you may be well known for being good at it, and that's something with a value that you need to think about before you throw it away. Finally, let's just look at some of the downsides of staying where you are. You're stuck in the same old. You might be in an industry where you can see the writing on the wall AI-wise. And one final downside might be that if you're not ready to hang up your boots in your career, it may just be not possible to move into a sort of semi-retired state. Okay, so where do we go from here? There are, as I've just demonstrated, really good arguments for jumping, but there are about the same number for staying put. So, what about a third option, a kind of retrain in your lane? Let's see what it might look like. Firstly, it needs to have a steady income. It needs to be able to capitalise on our experience, but it also needs to be able to get us fired up and motivated by moving into something new. It can have an uncertain outcome, but the failure downside needs to be limited. It also needs not to have any preconceived elements about who should be doing it in terms of age or sex or physical ability. Now I'm doing something that probably just about covers all that at the moment. What I've done is take my life experience at work, my current position on my career path, my skill set, which I've been consciously updating, and my desire for something new, to come up with a path forward which is best summarised as repackaging my knowledge. It will take various aspects of my life's experiences and look to take advantage of them via newer or alternative communication media. For example, I've always enjoyed writing, and that resulted in a few years ago with me writing a book on my experiences within the franchising industry, where I spent a large amount of money on a franchise that was, well, let's say less than optimal. That's just one example. I've become, as most people moving into the later stage of their career, interested in the whole question of when you should stop work, to the point where I just can't see why people are so fixated on it. I think the problem lies in the fact that people tend to follow the herd and retire whether they like their job or not. And in these uncertain times, I'm definitely not retiring. So I've repackaged this view into something that I explore on this YouTube channel. And then my next medium will be a newsletter, broadly in the same field but with a looser remit. My unfair advantage is that I'm more experienced than at least say 80% of the people on YouTube, certainly in just living life. All of these things are requiring me to learn a lot of new skills, not the least of which is the whole world of video production, but also what works on YouTube and what doesn't. On top of that, I'm learning the skill of writing sharp, punchy articles. The point is that these things are more interesting to me than my daily job is currently, and while I have to spend some money on them, it's nothing like what I would have to have spent if I had been fully stopping work and retraining. Now they should provide an alternative income to my current career, provided I persist with them, and then I can continue it as long as I feel like I want to and I need the money. The real area of spend is actually in terms of time. It's a time-consuming operation, this, especially as it comes on top of my day job, which I'm continuing, but it feels worth it. I recommend this approach, and I'm sure that if you look at your own life, you'll see there is real scope for you to do exactly the same. And so it's my recommendation, retrain in your lane. I hope you found that interesting. More videos coming along soon. Thanks.